Let's start off, though, with Sark. He was doing his press availability today, his press conference today about the game. We'll be going through the game today. As we get further into the week, we'll get into Baylor and Big 12 schedule. But let's listen to what Sark had to say about the game on Saturday night.
Alrighty. Just to reiterate and just kind of close the book on Saturday night, I do think it was a versatile team win. I've been talking a lot about this with the team that, we can win games a multitude of ways. And I thought Saturday night kind of showed that. We were really sound on special teams. We got 2 explosive returns out of Worthy in the punt return game. Sanborn punted the ball extremely well. Our kickoff coverage unit, continues to be just tremendous. They brought one out. We tackled the returner down inside the 15-yard line. So that's been a real positive of ours. And I know sometimes we're always looking for the wow plays with the blocks and things, but we've been very steady on special teams. That our field goal unit was good with their opportunities that they had. So been proud of that unit. They showed up Saturday night. I think defensively, as I touched on, there was probably 3 plays in the game that you feel frustrated on. The long touchdown run, we just don't fit it. We don't fit it very, very well at all. That kind of throw on the sidelines that goes through Keaton Crawford, arguably could have been an interception, and they create an explosive play there. And then the scramble there in the third quarter on third down where they kind of quarterback scrambles to his left and hits the receiver kind of in the hole there. But outside of that, we played pretty sound defensively, and I thought the adjustment on some of those quick out route throws showed up when Jaron Thompson, inevitably jumps the route, gets the interception, and returns it for a touchdown. So that adaptability was good. I thought in the run game, we kind of adjusted styles and we started moving them off the ball. I thought Jonathan Brooks, like I said, ran well. What I was really impressed with, you watch Xavier and A.D. Mitchell, 2 guys who we think of catching the ball. They blocked really well the other night. They were getting on secondary players and blocking, and that's just being a complete player. And then lastly, Jahdae Barron, 4 really good third down stops, a couple tremendous plays there. And then lastly, I just, I hate to jinx a guy, but Quinn taking care of the ball, I think, has been big for us as well. I know we had the 1 turnover really late there, but inevitably, taking care of the ball. So proud of the guys, like I said. That was a good learning experience for us to maybe not being at our best, but refocusing, recalibrating, and playing really well in the second half. We just didn't get many opportunities. I think we only had 52 snaps in the game offensively, which is about 20 or so snaps off of our average. And so you'd like to think maybe there'd be a few more opportunities to score, but I think we took advantage of the ones that we had in the second half. So encouraged by that.
Yeah, and we can also say the very end there where he says, the limited number of stats. If there wasn't the Jaden Blue fumble, which, again, he doesn't get a lot of playing time, I'm not going to hold him over the coals for that one. If he doesn't have that, it's probably 38-20 or 38-10, and people feel even a little bit better about the game from that final score. But that always notwithstanding. The adaptability, I agree with Sark. Adaptability has been great for Texas this year, but it's taken a little while to get there. They have consistently been able to find the way to get through, but it just takes them a half, and it takes the team a little bit to feel confident against some of these different looks. The difference between Wyoming and Rice to Alabama is everything went the way it was supposed to go against Alabama. That Alabama's defense came out and played the same defense and the same offense that you had seen on tape, that you had prepared for all week. What you had prepared for it happened out on the field, and what didn't happen against Rice and Wyoming last week was that both those schools basically brought something that was out of their playbook. They had done a couple of 3 deep safeties throughout. Rob Babers had brought that up in the pregame show, that it was a couple of, they brought out some different looks. But the different looks, Texas isn't preparing for them enough. They're going to have to figure that out as they keep going on through this season. You're going to have to keep figuring those types of things out because in the Big 12, once we get into Big 12 schedule, everybody's going to keep trying to find whatever is your weakness. They're going to keep attacking it no matter what they do. This is not a Big 12 right now that is good enough that any of these teams are really going to come at you with their strength. We knew what Wyoming did. Wyoming was a really good run defense. That's what they did, and they basically wiped out their run defense, said we won't even focus on our run defense. We're not worried about that because we don't think you're going to run the ball. We don't think your game plan is to run the ball as much. So we're not going to worry as much about our running. We're going to go to the passing game, and we're going to start, and we're just going to try and confuse Quinn Ewers as much as we can, and we're going to try and confuse and just mess up your game plan, because we know Sark is really good at drawing up scripts. But if we can go out there and just show something that's not supposed to be in the script, and we're having a different argument than you're having, and we're acting in a different play than you're acting in, then you know what? It's going to cause some problems, and it takes a while for Sark to adjust to that, as well as the team. So when Sark was asked about the passing game struggles, that against a team that everyone said going in, if you would watch the first 2 Wyoming games, you would watch the first 2 Texas games, Texas was going to have 400 yards passing in this game and maybe 50 to 60 yards rushing. That's what it looked like going into the game. That's how the strengths and weaknesses lined up. And Wyoming took everything that they could to help out that secondary and dared Texas to run on them, which they did. And that's really what sealed the game for Texas. What changed the game is once Texas got that run game going, it was going fine. Here's Sark talking about the passing game, though, and that there were struggles in this and how it affects you as a team when your plan is to be a pass-heavy team.
I think just every aspect of the passing game needs to improve. We felt like we weren't as sharp. We had a protection breakdown in there. Didn't have the best play calls predicated on what the coverages were. I think Quinn could have probably made a couple throws that he normally would make. So everybody kind of took their turn. And that's not to make excuses. We all have to be better. And that, again, you think passing game, you think play call, and you think quarterback. And most notably, both of us need to be better. But I think everybody else needs to be better as well. And so we all got to take responsibility of that. And we're going to need our passing game, as we know. And so, again, I'm not going to let one game kind of knock me off my rocker on this one. We were really good throwing the ball for 2 weeks, especially in week 2. It wasn't as clean as we wanted to. The lucky part for us, we have a run game that we can lean in on, a defense that we can count on, and special teams. But we'll get that fixed, and we'll go out and play much better in the passing game this week.
So, you have to start preparing, if you're Texas, for the inevitable that teams are going to throw a wrench in your plans. Because, again, this Wyoming defense, Texas Tech averaged 2.8 yards per carry against them, and they averaged 5 against Oregon. Portland State plays in week 2. Portland State averages 2.3 yards per carry against Wyoming. Texas averaged 6 yards per carry against Wyoming. And part of that is a huge Jonathan Brooks run. But I'm just saying that the game plan was forget rush defense. We're going to make Texas do what they don't want to do. We're going to play Sark that Sark doesn't want to play, gritty football and just run the ball. We know he wants big plays, and we're going to make him run the ball. And if he tries to throw the ball, we're going to try and take that game away. We're going to bump the receivers. We're going to try and take him out of routes. We're going to try and stick as many guys out there in the field and try natural pressure. We know Rice got some decent results just taking natural pressure and maybe blitzing a guy late. All of those things that Rice was able to do against Texas, Wyoming took that game plan and went against it. And defensively, Texas went out there and didn't realize they were playing against a new running back and a new wide receiver and a new quarterback. Wyoming didn't let on that they, hey, by the way, the game film you watched on our offensive players is completely different. And the defense did their job. They allowed the one big run. Jaron Thompson so far has one really bad play and one really good play in the last 2 games. Momentum swings, second half interceptions that changed the game in both games, and also just complete blown plays where he took a horrible route on that run play. He should have been there. He was behind the play. He should have been able to stop it. Wasn't able to stay in front. But he's making good plays. But this takes us to the word of the day, kids. This is the most important word, and this is a thing that Sark mentions a few times in the conference today. This is something that you have to look at when you're talking about how they played against Rice, how they played against Wyoming, how they played against Alabama. The word is consistency. That this Texas team needs to find a bit more consistency if they want to take that next step as a program. If you want to take that next step as a program, you need to build up the consistency that every game doesn't have to come in. We're guessing where your abilities are going to be, guessing what the team is going to run at you, and you can't impose your will on them because you're just not quite consistent enough. And we've seen it in games. Against Alabama, we saw the Texas wide receivers play amazing amazing downfield plays, amazing blocking that they had in some plays, and amazing, routes to get open, catches, everything they did in the game. And they also had some real bonehead drop passes, made missed blocks they should have missed to break big plays bigger. They did both sides. What you want to see is consistency. When you're scouting players, you can find players that, have the ability, and we can see the spark of something special in a player. And you can see that. And when you recruit that and when you bring that in, you like to bring in players with a little bit of consistency and a lot of spark, because what you know is we are going to train them to be more consistent. We're going to try and find that closer ground. And I think Sark has made improvements, because last year this team was very inconsistent, extremely inconsistent. And this year they've played both ways in all 3 games. All 3 games have had ups and downs, but they have shown in all 3 games that they are a good football team. So the consistency going forward, when you have the rest of your schedule, every single opponent you are playing is putting forth their best game plan against you. Everyone is scouting you. Everyone knows what you want to do. You need to go out there and show your consistency, that you were able to achieve those things. And now the fact that without C.J. Baxter, Jonathan Brooks is able to put up the game that he puts up. The fact that Jonathan Brooks is able to put up 100+ yards rushing and really set the tone, especially going into that second half, of imposing his will. And that's a consistency we need to see. I talked before the season that I wanted Jonathan Brooks to go out there and take the job. Nothing against C.J. Baxter. I think he's got a very bright future for Texas. But if you say someone's been in the system, this is their opportunity, I'm going to root for the guy that I think it's their opportunity to go take it. And I wanted him to take it. And I want C.J. Baxter to be a really good – I want him to be a 1-2 punch. But the problem was Jonathan Brooks didn't take the position. When you hear about what Sark says about Jonathan Brooks now versus what he had said at the beginning of the season, where you could tell there was some issues. We know that he missed some blocks. We know that he dropped some touchdown passes. And he wasn't necessarily bringing the consistent effort in the running game. And so he could bring in the third and fourth quarter. He needs to bring that consistency to being a powerful, hardcore first half running back as well, because that's how Sark is going to decide who's running the ball in the fourth quarter. Here's Sark talking about Jonathan Brooks, his growth, and his ability to kind of come into a situation where C.J. Baxter was injured. Jonathan Brooks had to take over in a game where the game plan was not to run the ball a lot, because Wyoming normally has a very strong front seven, and then in the second half impose his own will. Here's Sark talking about Jonathan Brooks.
Well, I think maturity, it's like anything. Guy's year 3 now, and he had a chance for 2 years to be with Bijan and Roshan, 2 really mature guys, and that handled adversity really well, never really got emotional. And I think now, Jonathan is at a state of his career where he's a little bit more even keel, and he's a little bit more focused, and that allows him to kind of not make kind of some unforced errors, and he's taking care of the ball better today than he ever has. Knock on wood. He's really taking care of the football situationally. His understanding of what we're trying to do. He's a problem in the passing game. So he's just grown, right? His development has been that he's grown as a player, but he's also, I think, grown personally, and he's a guy that's one of the leaders on our team, and I'm glad we got him.
And that's where we want to see Sark talking more glowingly of Jonathan Brooks. But that comes down to how consistent he can play week to week. The effort from everyone on this team, that we saw the effort in the first half of this game from everybody, wasn't quite the same. I'll give Xavier Worthy a lot of credit that his play in special teams and him just trying to get the team kind of excited, get people up for the game, get people into it and feeling the way they need to feel offensively when the start wasn't what you wanted it to be. When you just, you have all that hype and everything, and it just kind of peters out, and it can really slow you down. I'll give Xavier Worthy credit of being a leader on this team, on special teams, where he doesn't necessarily have to go out of his way to try and make some of these plays. He's going out and trying to do everything in his power to electrify the team, not only the fans, but the team, and get them to play at a higher level and get them to get energized and to come bring that effort that needs to be stepped up, because Xavier Worthy can only do so much if he's being double teamed. You can't get too much more out of him. I think he had a good game for how much they were really trying to shut him down and how much of their defensive game plan was centered around Xavier Worthy. I think he had a pretty decent game for what it was. You can't blame him for if Quinn doesn't see him, and you can't blame him if, the ball doesn't come his way or he's double covered. You can't blame him for that. But I think that that was a good thing to see that he came out and started to get this team more excited, started to get this team feeling a little bit better. But you have to start it, and this is where I know it's the extension of the run game is the passing, and where you want to get those short yardage passing. I think that should have been hit up a little bit more. Quinn wasn't necessarily feeling it. I don't know why they weren't able to get to that as much, to get 4 or 5 yards instead of 2 or 3 yards in the running game. But it was very much a slow start against a defense they were not expecting to see. Here's Sark talking about when teams kind of throw up different fronts against you and how you have to react as a running game and a passing game.
Yeah, I hopefully we can continue to build off the run game of kind of where we got to last week. One of the challenges from a coaching perspective is, we try to anticipate the looks that we're going to get, and then we try to put our players in position to practice those things, and then so that they can operate at a high level. But ultimately, we're always going to get some things in game that are different, right? That are new. And that's when our players really have to trust their training. That's when they have to fall back on their fundamentals, right? The training that we've put them through training camp, and where the rules apply to each run, and block it to their capability. And then on the sideline, we can get those things fixed. And so I think we can mature in that frame of like, hey, we're going to practice our runs this week versus the variety of things we think we're going to get. If something outlandish comes out, if we just trust our training, we stick to our fundamentals and techniques, we should cover them up. It might not be the ideal run versus that specific look or that front. Then that's where we have to adapt and we have to adjust as a coaching staff and maybe get them to something different.
And so that's going to be the struggle for the rest of the season, is you're going to see everybody throwing everything at the wall in front of you. And I know we get a text that they were consistent last year, good in the first half, bad in the second half. But that's not really. That's the team doing what the game plan was. The game plan worked, and you were able to, use the game plan to go out and score some points. And then when you had to adapt, you weren't able to do it. This year, the team is actually adapting well. They're going well. But the game plans that have been drawn up these first couple of weeks, week 1 and week 3, were just not good game plans. They went up against teams that changed up everything, hadn't seen enough of them. And, there's going to be a difference of, you probably won't see as many things in Big 12 play where you really just don't have any film on a team doing this type of thing. But I think you will be more prepared for Sark. I think Sark will have a better idea of what to prepare teams for as we get in the Big 12. I think PK will be able to help out on that. I think some of the other coaches will be able to help out, some of the analysts, to have a little bit more of a flexible game plan in the first half of these seasons, in the first half of these games. Because the adaptability is great. The consistency of the energy in the second half is great. But that consistency needs to go over 4 quarters. That is where Texas needs to step up to the next level. They need to be able to play 4 quarters at a level of energy and intensity that even when, even though you may miss a play, and even though you have that run play that breaks out to the side, and Jaron Thompson just wasn't aware of the speed of the running back because it was his first game that season, so maybe he wasn't aware of it and just took a real bad angle for it and cost him 7 points. Even if there's that, you then have to be able to bounce back on the next series and try and make something big, as opposed to waiting for the second half when you really start to feel the pressure of it being a 3-point game in the second half or a tie game in the second half. You shouldn't need that pressure to feel it. You should feel the pressure already because of the expectations that you should have for yourself. That's the consistency that Texas needs to find, is the pressure does not need to be a situational pressure. You should have it all the time, and whether you're winning or losing or doing whatever you're doing, that pressure should be consistent.